All right, here we go. We're looking at the review or practice test, just the multiple choice part for chapter 1. So let's jump right into this. So number 1 is a distance problem. So I know that the distance from F to G added to the distance from G to H should equal the entire distance, the whole thing, which is represented by FH. So I basically just need to substitute those values in. So 9 is FG, GH is I don't know, which we could call X or we can call question mark. And then the whole thing, F to H, is 15. Now you don't formally have to set it up like this, but on the algebra problems later it might make it a little bit easier. So basically we're saying 9 plus what equals 15. You can subtract the 9 from both sides. And we find out the correct answer is 6. Moving on to number 2, find BD. So it's kind of important. This one's a little bit trickier. BD is the distance from here all the way down to there. So kind of looks like what we need is we're missing BC. You know, once we get BC, we could then add the 5 to it and have BD. So let's see if we can get a clue from somewhere else. Well, the first thing I notice is A to C is 10, which means if this is 10, I already have 8 accounted for from A to B. So from B to C, that must have to be 2. That way we get 8 plus 2 equals the 10. And now to answer the final question, the length from B all the way to D is basically 2 plus 5 or 7. The correct answer there is C. All right, let's take a look at 3 and 4. So zipping through these guys. Now we're going into algebra. So same idea. F to G, which is 2x plus 5. So that's F to G. Added to G to H, which is just 5, equals the grand total from F to H, which is 6x minus 2. Sometimes I call him the big dog. All right, so we add these up. Left-hand side, I got some cleanup to do. I can add 5 plus 5, so I'm going to just call this 2x plus 10 equals 6x minus 2. And now there's multiple ways to start this. I always attack the smaller variables first, so I'm going to minus that 2x from both sides, which is going to leave me 10 equals 4x, take away 2. Now, a lot of you guys are tempted right here to minus the 10, but I don't want to wipe out that side. I want to get 4x by itself, so I'm going to plus 2 to both sides. That way I have my x terms on the right, my number terms on the left, and I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and I get an answer of x equals 3. And sometimes, let's see, they want me to solve for x. Sometimes I have to substitute it back in. Now, if I want to double check and make sure that 3 is right, I'm going to take that 3 and I'm going to substitute it in those two places and see if it checks out. So 2 times 3 plus 5, well, that's 11. And then 6 times 3 would be 18, take away 2, which is 16. And I think 11 plus 5 does come out to be 16, so I know that it worked. Now, some of you guys that algebra is not your strong point, I'd rather have you do algebra, but if you get in a pinch and you don't know how to do the algebra, the other thing you can do, and I'm not going to show this for every problem, but I will show it here, is you can just try a number, plug it in, and see if it works. So for instance, let's say I want to try this 9. Well, 6 times 9 is 54, take away 2, would give me a length of 52 here on the bottom. You know, all the way from F to H. And if I try that 9 up here, 2 times 9 is 18 plus 5. Well, that will give me 23. And this is 5. And you're going to notice 23 plus 5 does not equal 52. So I would know 9 didn't work, and now I'd have to try another number. That method can be slower, but if you're in a pinch, it could definitely work. All right, moving right along. Classify as acute. Remember, acute means less than 90. Obtuse means more than 90. right means it's equal 90, and straight means it's 180 degrees or forms a perfect straight line. So this angle right here is definitely bigger than 90 degrees. So correct answer there is C. Moving right along to 5 and 6. These will go a little bit faster. 5, this is less than 90 degrees, so this is acute. Number 6, this is going to be angle addition. So if you're in your notes, this is the angle addition, which I think, if I recall, was in 1.3 notes. I need to label these angles. So GHD, that's right here, GHD, that is 24 degrees. The next one they give me is DHI. So D to H to I, that's the adjacent angle sitting right next to them, is 140. And ultimately we need to find GHI. Well, GHI is this big angle, this whole thing right here. So basically we need to add the two up. 24 plus 140 should equal 164. Correct answer there is D. Keep going. Number 7 and number 8. Find ALM. So ultimately we're trying to figure out this angle. We do know that KLA is 75. So KLA is right here, that's 75. And KLM is the big dog. Goes all the way around. So basically, that's 161. We know that blue plus red has to equal black. So if I just call this I don't know, I don't know plus 75 has got to equal 161. Now you don't formally have to write this out. You might just say, hey, I just got to subtract 75. That'll work too. And I subtract that out, and that's going to be 61, 14, what's that, 86? Correct answer there is D. X equals 86, or ALM, the measure of angle ALM, is 86 degrees. All right, number 8, we're getting into some algebra here. If it helps you, sometimes these drawings are a little bit too small for me. So sometimes I like to make them larger, just so that I can write inside there, especially when I'm doing it on the board here. So let's see what we got. Step number 1, always label your picture. So the measure of angle QRS, well, where is that? QRS, oh my goodness, that's the big dog. QRS flows all the way from here, all the way over there. That big dog there is 29x plus 1. And QRN is 35. That's this little fellow right here, QRN. And then NRS is 19x plus 6. So that's right here, 19x plus 6. The two littles need to equal the big. So we basically have black plus red equals blue. And now from here, the geometry is pretty much over. Now we're just doing some algebra. So left-hand side, I need to clean this up and combine some like terms. I'm going to combine the 6 and 35 to get 41. Right-hand side just comes down. My move, pretty much always attack the weaker variable, the smaller variable. I like having positive x's at the end. It just makes my life easier. 29 minus 19x is 10x. Added to 1. I need to get rid of that plus 1, so I'm going to minus 1 from both sides, which gives me 10x equals 40. Last move, divide, divide, and I get x equals 4. Now, and it does say find x, so I don't really have to plug it in. Again, if I wanted to, if this was a test, I would take this 4, and I would jam that sucker in right here and right there and see if it works. So let's test it. 29 times 4 added to 1. Well, that's going to be 120 minus 4. That's going to be 116 plus 1. That'll be 117 for the big dog. Well, let's see when we plug it in over here. 19 times 4 added to 6. 19 times 4 is 76 plus 6, so that would be 82. And is it true that 82 added to 35? Bam, that is 117. So I feel good about it. Correct answer is 4. Moving right along. 9 and 10. Number 9 is another algebra problem, so I'm going to do it similarly. Measure of angle CDE. So this is a chunk. I'm going to separate it. I like to put boxes around stuff. CDE, that's the whole thing. C to D to E, bam. 20x minus 6. C to D to F is 100. So that's this little sliver right there. And then F to D to E is this small little guy over here. That's 3x plus 13. So again, I'm going to use the angle addition postulate. I'm going to use that, the red plus the black needs to equal the big dog, which is the blue. And then now again, from here, it's just pretty much algebra. So, if you didn't quite follow me there, if I wanted to write it formally, I would say the measure of angle CDF, which is 100, plus the measure of angle FDE, which is 3x plus 13, equals the whole thing, which is the measure of angle CDE. That step is not necessary, but it might help show where those numbers came from. All right, let's do the algebra. Left-hand side, I have some like terms I can combine. Everything else just kind of flows down. I see x's on both sides, so let's get rid of the smaller x's. And I get 113 equals 17x minus 6. I have now isolated x's to the right, so we need to get these numbers here to the left by doing the opposite. Got 17x equals $1.19. And last move, divide. And I believe that goes in there 7 times. So x equals 7. Then again, you could plug it in and you could check it out. For time's sake, I'm not going to do that on this one. Now we're just naming the relationships. Well, anytime two angles are on opposite sides of this x here, two lines cross, they're called vertical angles. And just another note, we know that they're equal to each other. Let's go check out 11 and 12. So number 11, angle A plus angle B happen to form a straight line. All right, so correct answer there is linear pair. Also, we know that straight lines are 180. So I do know that these two angles add to 180, which another name for that is supplementary. So if supplementary was a choice, that could also be that as well. Number 12, the most important part of number 12 is this little red box, which implies 90 degrees or a right angle. So when two angles add up, B plus A, I know has to equal 90 because they form that right angle. That means they are complementary. So complementary means equals 90 degrees. 13, this is kind of the fast part of the test. Well, 13, I have two angles that share a side. Angle B and angle A, they kind of share this side right here. So they're next door neighbors. Now, they don't really have any other special relationship. I have no idea how many degrees that is. That's just some random angle. So when that happens, we say that the two angles are adjacent. So adjacent means that they share a common side. All right, but they don't add up to anything special. So, all right, number 14, we get into some algebra. Using these relationships now to solve problems. Again, I see the box, so I know it equals 90. So I know that U plus U have to equal 90 degrees. Another way to add two angles is you could stack them up. I'm just going to show you this little method. So the top angle added to the bottom angle is 8x plus 2. And I know they had to equal 90 degrees because this little box was here. Then I just solve it. I subtract 2 from both sides, which is 88. And then I divide both sides by 8. And I get x equals 11. You could always just plug and chug too. You could always just stick numbers in there until they add up to 90. Might be a little slower. I don't really recommend it, but if that's all you got, bring what you got. Number 15. So these two are just like a couple questions ago where together they form a straight line. So I know they have to add up to 180 degrees. So if you want to do it horizontally, you could do it this way. X minus 13 added to 3x plus 1. So basically this person plus this person equals 180 degrees. They form a linear pair. And I combine like terms here on the left. I have x plus 3x is 4x. I have a minus 13 and a positive 1, which come out to be minus 12. And now to isolate the 4x, I'm going to add 12 to both sides, which is 192. Divide both sides by 4. And it looks like that goes in there 4, 3. Looks like x would be 48. Correct answer, A. All right, number 16. Be careful because the graph, they could ask one of two things. They could ask midpoint or distance. This one says find the midpoint. Couple different ways you could do this. One is just visually look at it. I think the middle is somewhere around here. Okay, to me it looks like it's right there. And that point is at -2, -1, which would be D. Now, if you put these other dots in here, you'll clearly see they're not in the middle of the line. If I try 2, 3, right 2, up 3, it's right there. Remember, the first number is the x, goes left and right. The second number is up or down. So that red dot's not in the middle of the line. 1, -4 means go over 1, down 4. That's not in the center of the line. -8, 10, heck, that's way over to -8, all the way down to 10. That dude's not even on the grid. -4.5, -1.5 would live right here. That's not on the line. So just visually, you can kind of see where it's at. Now, the mathematical way that you should do this is the midpoint formula is you add the two x's and then divide by 2. Basically what that just did, it found the average of the x coordinates. And then you average the two y coordinates, and that should give me my location. So when I fill in the dots here, this point right here is at 0, 2. And this point here is at -4, -4. And I like to stack them like this. Sometimes it's easier because I can handle the x's and y's separately. So using this part of the formula, I'm going to add these two x numbers, and then I'm going to divide by 2. And then I'm going to add these two y numbers, and I'm going to divide by 2. And that will also give me the coordinates that I need. So sometimes you don't have a grid. That's a nice way to do it if you don't have the grid. 17, find the distance between the 2 points. Remember, distance, circle that correctly. Distance right here is basically we're trying to find the length. And I'm not a big fan of the distance formula, so I'm not going to show you how to do it that way. I'm a big fan of the Pythagorean Theorem. So the Pythagorean Theorem basically says that you can connect these two dots using horizontal and vertical lines. So you draw your own right triangle, and you count the side lengths. Now, the ones I just drew in blue, these are called the legs. All right, so this has a leg of 2, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a 2 by 5, and I'm not sure how long that side is, which we call the hypotenuse. So remember, Pythagorean Theorem is leg squared plus leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. Or many of you guys say a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Either way, so let's put my two legs in there. 5 squared plus 2 squared equals, and we'll call it c, so we don't know the hypotenuse, And let's just do our math. 5 times 5 is 25. 2 times 2 is 4. So I have 29 equals c squared. Now here's kind of the kicker. You got to be careful. To undo a squared, the opposite of squaring something is to take the square root of it. So I need to take the square root of both sides. That will get rid of the 2 and give me just c. On your calculator, most of you guys, if you checked one out for me, you're going to have to hit the second key, and then you're going to have to hit the x squared key, because the little square root lives right above it. But what times itself is 29? I don't know that exactly, but I do know that 5 times itself is 25, and 6 times itself is 36. So it's going to be somewhere between 5 and 6. So the correct answer there must be D, 5.4. And I'm sure they rounded that off somewhere to the nearest tenth. All right, number 18. 18 will probably be easier if you create a grid. So I'm going to kind of sketch a grid here. You're going to have graph paper, so that would be nice and helpful for you. But I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Bear with me. All right. So I got a little 10 by 10 grid. Again, you use graph paper, so you don't have to waste time sketching it out, and it's way more accurate. But this problem is, I have the end at 5, 5. So 5 to the right, and then go 5 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right around in here, that's 5, 5. And then my middle point, my midpoint here, is at negative 1, 2. So left 1, up 2. So that's my midpoint. And I need to find the other end. So if I start connecting this line, I think the other end is going to put me somewhere down here. So even if I didn't know, I would at least guess somewhere in that region. So, you know, the order pair there, the x is on the negative side, and the y is probably going to be on the negative side. Looking at my answers, there's only one set of answers here that has a negative for the x and a negative for the y, and that's B. Now, that's not the best way to do it, but that's a way to eliminate some answers. You know, you could put those other dots on the grid and see if they look like they would be the other end. I think the easiest way for this one is to kind of use like a slope idea. So basically, to get from, and it's easier when you have your own graph paper to do this, but to get from the blue to the red point, I'm going to drop 1, 2, 3. I go 3 down, and then I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to the left. So we're going 3 down, 6 to the left. So now I got to copy that again from this red dot. 1, 2, 3 down. So that puts me at a height of negative 1. And then 6 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, that's over here at negative 7. And so I can get it that way. There's an algebra way too, but I don't think the majority of you are using that way. So I'm just going to kind of stick with these two methods. All right, now remember, for tomorrow's test, you do get a cheat sheet. You can put anything you want front and back. So make sure tonight you put sample problems on here. If there's questions here on the review that you're still kind of shaky on, write down what I wrote down and add that to your cheat sheet, and you can use that tomorrow. Good luck and see you.